Hello, everyone. We are back with this amazing show from 1871 is where we're recording. And our podcast is all about complex ideas, and we're just having some very clear conversations with them. So our guest here today is the beautiful Sue Ellen. She's a great friend of mine, and we are basically going to be discussing a lot of interesting things. So I actually just want to kind of pose a question to our viewers initially. I mean, have you guys ever been in a situation when, like maybe you were younger and somebody would ask you what you wanted to be when you grew up, right? And you just kind of were like, all right, well, maybe I want to be an astronaut, or maybe I want to be a lawyer or a doctor, or archaeologist, astronaut, whatever, And then you get to high school and you start taking some classes. You go to school and, you take a bio class and maybe you realize that, I don't like biology, You go to grad school. You're in that kind of sucked in period where, all the people that you're friends with are taking these classes. And then you guys, you apply to grad school because that's what you're supposed to do. And then you realize you don't want to be a doctor. And I feel like this is a discussion that is pretty relevant. And this is why I would say our guest here has had some amazing experiences. I'm so impressed by her. So basically she was a corporate accounting executive at a $1 billion company, guys. Like that's a big deal for 12 years. And Sue Ellen, what she did was basically, it just was not suiting to you, and she ended up then leaving and starting her own business, basically, dealing with small businesses, working with small businesses in the wellness space. And that's a great space to be in because we all need that. So by helping these businesses, you are helping us. Who doesn't need wellness? Who does not need healing? Our basically objective by the end of this podcast, I would love our audience to have some solutions, some tools. So we're going to have a lot of discussions about mindset, about what are the trigger signs of what you should look for in terms of this kind of experience, like not wanting to keep going in a space that is just taxing on you, and we're going to get into some manifestation because these are some amazing tools that I think and topics that, Sue Ellen and I, we've had some conversations before, and, it certainly helps the drive. So welcome.
Yay. Thanks for having me. So excited. I love to talk about all of the manifestation and fun things. So excited to dive into this.
Yes, I'm excited. And I think where we should start first in terms of just understanding is we're going to take it way back. We're going to take it back to when you were a kid. I would love to understand that, Sue Ellen. What were the thoughts that were happening in your mind? Considering you're dealing with, like, on a corporate level. You are numbers. Numbers are not my jam, is what I'm going to say, but numbers are hard. And specifically, you are helping this $1 billion company, and you're in an executive position. So what kind of, when you're a kid, what's your mindset? Did you know, that you were going to work in a space like that and have so much responsibility? What was your drive like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the oldest of 5, which says a lot. When you're the oldest child, the oldest daughter in particular, I was always trying to, be an achiever, to have, be someone that my siblings could look up to. I was almost like a second mother in a lot of ways. I was always concerned with taking care of my siblings, making sure they were okay. And I think that just helped me be a leader first and foremost, just within my family unit. I grew up in going to church quite often, we were in religion. And so within that space as well, that really taught me discipline. It taught me structure. It taught me values. values. And then my parents are both Marines.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you can imagine growing up with two Marines as parents. And so while, yes, they were strict, we had rules to follow and there was expectations. I was always seeking to get the best grades and, straight A's I was always striving for. I was a competitor. I played softball competitively and I was the captain of my softball team and, just achieve, try to be the best, right? But there was this other side of me that was very insecure. I never felt good about myself. I always felt like, I don't know, like I didn't really fit in. I felt just like out of place, the things we all go through in high school, I wasn't part of the popular crew, so there was this part of me who was excelling constantly, but this other part of me who just didn't feel good about myself. And that kind of played into some themes like throughout my adult life that I had to kind of go back in and do a lot of like inner child healing to kind of heal those parts of me and those experiences that I had back then. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where I started and came from. No, I did not know that I was going to move into this like corporate executive role, but kind of ended up there because I was good at math. So that's how I ended up. You shared at the beginning, like, you follow this path, and that's exactly what I did. It was just kind of like ended up that way, just not intentionally, really. It's just like it was one step after another, and here I am. So, yeah.
No, I love it. And actually, that's true. Sometimes there's that story about, the storybook where there is a child with a horse. It's a fantasy storybook or whatever. And, the child looks at the forest and he's like, I'm scared. And the horse, the talking horse, says, do you see the first step ahead of you? And the child is like, yes. And then it's like, just take that one, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that our society, and maybe just the way that we're structured in the school systems, is just, taking that next step and not really then seeing or being present enough to know or to feed our own selves, right? And so the point, I feel like, I'd love to dive, like, Marines. Oh my God. So you were getting up at like 6 a.m. or like what? Or not even, probably 5 a.m. Cold shower. Like that's like what did that look like?
No, it wasn't that intense. But so both my parents were athletes as well. And so, my dad, he was an entrepreneur. He is an entrepreneur, I should say, serial entrepreneur. He's had many businesses. He worked a lot. Mm-hmm. So through, being a Marine, there's a lot of structure, there's a lot of discipline there as well. I really learned how to be a hard worker through just my experience with my father. Mm-hmm. On my mom's side, she was really a stay-at-home mom. She had jobs here and there as we got older, but she really was like just a stay-at-home mom raising us, and she was an avid runner. Like if my mom did not run I think it was 8 miles at the time, wow. 8 miles a day,
yeah.
She was in a bad mood.
Oh
okay.
My gosh.
And so that also like got me into really health and wellness and knowing that it was important to take care of our bodies and, be fit and, take care of our health. Mm-hmm. And also like that is discipline right there. If you're running 8 miles a day, that's like some discipline, and so I think in growing up, my sisters and I joke because if we were sick, if there was not TMI bodily fluids coming somewhere, you were going to school, It was like there was no laying in bed and resting. Right. And so
you power through it.
You power through it. Mm-hmm. And it's also, it's a lesson that I'm learning right now is like, it's okay to rest, and God bless my parents, but it's okay to rest and we do need rest. Mm-hmm. It's where we get to recharge. And there was really no rest in my family. It was go, 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 go. We were constantly on the move. There's 5 kids, right? Mm-hmm. One's at baseball, one's at softball, one's at dance, so you're constantly on the move, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just work hard and achieve and get good grades and you're going to make it to the top and be successful. Like that was the roadmap, and so, yeah, it was good times.
Oh my gosh. I love the fact that, like you mentioned, balance, right? And it seems that, at least from knowing you and having the conversations that we've had, I think that initially, you're talking about your early childhood and being so regimented, and like there's no space for balance, right? And sometimes it's like then you feel depleted, right? You're depleted, and that's years of depletion if you think about it. and I want to kind of get into like you being in this corporate space, firstly, how you got there, the journey of you being in this leadership position at this company, but then also like also feeling depleted there, and then maybe do you feel is that was kind of how you decided you needed a transition?
Yeah. So I started out in public accounting before I got into the corporate space. And so the kind of the path for many accountants is, okay, I'm good at math in high school. I was getting good grades in math. I liked it. So I went into undergrad. The first 2 years, you're kind of just taking all the core classes. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? You're 18, 19 years old. You have no idea, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm good at math. I'm going to go to accounting school and do business. And I actually liked it. I thought I was good at it. I was getting good grades. And, I don't know, my whole life, I haven't really had to like try that hard academically. I did study, but it just came natural to me, and so, still living my college life, having a good time, but it was like kind of just seamless, right? And so I'm like, okay, maybe I'm meant to be an accountant, right? And so through that, you kind of get farmed out into either you go into the private sector, but if you really want to excel in accounting, you go to one of the big accounting firms. So I started working in one of the accounting firms. And if you know anything about that, during busy season, you have to work 60 hours, I think, is your minimum of billable hours. And that's not counting. I was working out in Melbourne, so I was driving hour and a half each way, or I was having to stay overnight in a hotel room. And that, I remember my first year, I literally broke out in hives, my first engagement, because I was so stressed out. And that's not normal. Okay. It is not normal for us to have to work under these like conditions. And so, I did that for 5 years. I moved up, I became the manager, and I just had like, okay, am I really seeking to be a partner at this firm, or do I need to go do something else? And I was like, okay, I don't want to do this. Let me go into corporate accounting. It'll be so much better there. Right. And so I moved into my corporate role, and the cards just fell for me, right? Like I got into my first position. 6 months later, a manager role opened up. So they moved me into a manager. And then a year later, my boss, who was the director at the time, left the company. And so they just like fast tracked me up into executive leadership. Like I became an executive there really quickly. And so it was just, again, achieve, right? And I made it to this top, like I'm a corporate executive managing $1 billion company, and I was miserable, the whole time. Like I never took a second to stop and think, is this making me happy? Right. Is this what I want to do? And it's that thing where you just get to that ivory tower that you've been working towards, and you just look down and say, wait, what am I doing?
This is it,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Is this it? And I just remember like every year, New Year's comes around and you start writing your resolutions and what you want to change. And it was every year I just wanted my job to change, but I didn't know what it was. I always thought I would be an entrepreneur. My dad is an entrepreneur, like I said, and I would talk to my friends of like, okay, let's get a business idea. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I do, and then I would just be calling my mom, telling her, I don't feel like I fit in here. I was just, so out of place, but there was fear holding me back, right? And I was telling myself a story that this is safe. This is the safe place to be. Entrepreneurship is not safe, and this is my path. But and I know we'll get into this, but eventually it's like, that is not my path. I can't do this. When you look at the top person in the company, and is that what I want my life to be like? Absolutely not. Right. And so then I knew I had to make a change. Yeah.
And so what would you say with the first whisperings? Was it like you kind of being up at 3 a.m. at night, scrolling kind of like these wellness spaces, or like, what would you say is, the first sign where you're like, where the momentum is beginning, right? Where it's like, and just for anyone out there that is stuck in a job where it's like, okay, I'm on paper, this looks great. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm, doing all the things that I wanted to achieve, quote unquote, air quotes for sure. What would you say to them, and what were your first whisperings?
Well, I will say there was a lot of whisperings that I did not listen to. Like I said, it's it's interesting. Years ago, when I was moving, from Florida up into, I'm in Chicago now, I was going through an old box of stuff, and I found this notebook where I would always do these exercises of just like, what's my purpose in life?
I love notebooks.
Yeah, what is my purpose? But yeah, and I would just be journaling like 100 things. I did this exercise once where you just wrote out 100 things. Don't think, just like what you want to do in life.
Yeah.
And I found that paper. And it was very exciting because a lot of those things I had accomplished by then. I wrote this like 15 years ago, right? 10 years ago. But the one thing I hadn't done yet was start a business, quit my job. Okay. Like this was listed on there 10 years ago. And it was just, and there were some major life changes that happened in my life at the time. But that's what really triggered me of like, okay, why this 10 years? I've been wanting to do this for 10 years. What is stopping me? And that really got me. That was the moment when I found that paper of just like, okay, this story has to stop. I can't keep living this. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again. And it was like this year that I just kept repeating. And we are in control of our lives. We are the ones who are keeping ourselves in these jobs because we're telling ourselves this story that that's the only thing that we can do. And it's just not true. So yes, there was tons of whispers, but it wasn't until that moment where it like smacked me in the face and I saw it on the paper of like, okay, it's been 10, 12 years you've been telling yourself the same story. It's like either shut up about the story or do something about it.
Right. Yeah. So do you feel like you have to hit a certain, like, was it like hitting like that kind of a rock bottom, or just that was your aha moment?
Yeah. I mean, I really, I've shared with you, was at a very, very big rock bottom in my life. I left a toxic relationship when I moved here to Chicago, and I had just moved here 3 weeks with him and left and knew nobody in the city. My 2 stepsisters live here, but they're up north. But I knew no one. I had no friends, no community, no nothing. And it was probably the worst I've felt in my entire life. It's just like I had no self-worth. Tons of come to Jesus type moments, and one of them being my job. And it's like, I really took a look at my life holistically, all the areas of my life, my relationships, my friendships, where I am, my career. And I said, this stops now, like this, my entire life, I haven't been living for me. I haven't been doing what I want to do in my life. And at this very moment, I know it's going to be hard, but I'm going to start living for me, and I'm going to create the life that I want to live. And so that was kind of like, it took a rock bottom to get me here, but I think a lot of times we do need kind of a rock bottom to really shake us up.
Right. No, for sure. So for anyone that is hitting that rock bottom, or maybe by listening to us right now, having like an aha moment, it's like, yeah, you know what? That's right. I am not happy. Perhaps there's more to life than hard work. There must be something else to what the definition of success is. So what would you say for someone that is hitting that moment, that aha moment or that rock bottom moment? What do you do from there?
I think you have to just sit with yourself for a little bit and just sit with it. Like, there's no rush, right? Like when I got to that moment of, okay, it can't get any worse than here, okay? Like, literally, I am at the rock bottom. There's only up from here, right? But I don't need to rush into this. And it took me time, like we're talking 3 years ago. And it's just, I started my business last year, exiting, it took me a year to leave my job. Things take time. I mean, you want to be intentional. You don't want to just try to, okay, I'm at this rock bottom and try to find something else immediately to supplement and fill the void that you're feeling. It needs to be intentional and just truly sit with yourself. What is my soul calling for me to chase now? Like, what do I really want to do with my life? And that can change, I think we think that, okay, we have to make this decision and it's forever, like I started this business, especially in entrepreneurship. I think it's, you start a business, it's going to change. Like my business, when it started, looks different than it does today, and it's going to continue to evolve. And so, as we were talking about earlier, it's literally one step at a time, right? And it's just taking that next step and trusting that the next step is going to open up along the way. And the path just opens up as you just keep taking the first step. And I think the first step is just sitting with it and saying, what is going to make me happy in this moment? And start, shifting from there.
Yeah. I certainly believe that there's a level of honesty that you need to have with yourself. I think sometimes as humans, we may, live for other people. And we think that perhaps maybe that obligation is what the truth is. It's like, oh, be nice to other people or, be accommodating. And sometimes it's like you are living so externally that you're not living internally. I mean, for me, growing up, certainly I was a people pleaser.
Yes.
I just knew that that's what you were supposed to do. And, a lot of it was my upbringing. But what ends up happening is then you're always at a deficit,
Yes.
You're always at a deficit. And so just realizing that internally, when I people please, I always feel not so good after. And so channeling that, whatever that is, if it's people pleasing or whatever kinds of things that a person might do that they feel might be some sort of mechanism that they revert to, it's a matter of like realizing it, right? It's like, this is it. And this is not making me feel good. You have to listen to your body. You have to listen to you. It's like, have you ever been someplace where it's like, okay, I'm not talking to that person.
Right.
Don't do it. Because the last time I would talk to that person, I felt like garbage.
Right.
And then you go and talk to them anyway. And then you come home and you're like, I feel like garbage. I feel so bad. So you have to listen to yourself, because I have never been wrong or felt miserable when I listen to myself, because and so I think it's like, after just getting back to what you were talking about, like you have this this emptiness, and, being in this profession where you were like hitting all of the bullet points, and you were delivering, and everything on paper looks great, but you're empty.
Right.
So that wholeness, and I would love to get into your kind of journey towards manifestation, understanding actually where did you learn about this, and how is this something that has become a part of your day-to-day?
Yeah. So I learned about manifestation through a breakup podcast is how I first heard the term. I was literally, the girl on the floor crying on the bathroom floor alone, like, somebody please tell me something that's going to make me feel better,
You gotta let it out.
Yeah. I'm in therapy, right? And that obviously helped a ton, tremendously. But I was still seeking, I used to love personal development back in the day. And I remember I just wasn't ready for it. I read The Secret. If you've, it's like a big manifestation, like book, right? A movie, I guess now. And I was not receptive to it at the time, back in my 20s when I first read it, because my mom was very sick. And if you read the book, or, it really talks about how we create these circumstances in our life. So I had a ton of resistance to it, like anger, like, you're telling me my mom made herself sick, kind of thing. And so it just wasn't the right time for me in my journey. So then fast forward, I go through this horrible breakup, and I'm just listening to breakup podcasts to like help me feel better. And this girl who was being interviewed, she was talking about her breakup experience. And she was like, yeah, I just really started seeking, bettering myself, and I learned about manifestation. I was like, wait, what is manifestation? And so I just went like, I need to know about this.
Right.
And so I found, some podcasts about manifestation, and just really started learning about how our thoughts and our beliefs, they really create our reality. I mean, it's true. Like, our energy creates our life. And I kind of got obsessed with it. And so, I've joined like programs, really dove into deep inner work, and it has completely transformed my life learning about this. And that's why I'm like so passionate about talking about it, because truly, I think they need to be teaching this in schools, you know, and I'm sure there's a reason why it's not taught in schools.
Yeah, yes, I for sure. So that's interesting. And I'd love for you to elaborate more on this topic, specifically for perhaps somebody that might be watching the first time maybe that they've heard about manifestation. Say it's here, right? And I think sometimes, you know, even with meditation, the first time you hear about it, you roll your eyes like, how am I going to be sitting there meditating? And then it becomes your day-to-day, you know, and how, right? So that's kind of like an initial bridge. But I think that sometimes people also view manifestation, energy work, all of these kinds of like, you know, soul-related things as woo-woo, right? So I would love for you to elaborate because, you know, like you, we've had many conversations about this. And, you know, I definitely believe that it's a journey. But I think it's important for those individuals that have not yet bridged the gap between woo-woo and, hey, there's a basis to this. There is actually something to this, specifically when it comes to, like, say, for example, you know, you are in charge of your own reality, or like, you know, your thoughts, whatever you're thinking on the inside, actually your internal environment becomes your external environment. So I'd love for you to elaborate more on that. You know, what was your discovery process when it came to something like that?
Yeah. So we are manifesting all the time, whether we realize it or not, right? We are co-creators of our reality. Everything in our reality we created, whether you know it or not. And so manifestation is really just being intentional about it, like knowing that how this works, that we can be intentional about creating our reality. And the, I guess, premise is really like your thoughts, your dominant thoughts, your beliefs, they create, you know, if you're thinking a negative thought, and you're constantly replaying this this tune over and over and over again, I'm not worthy, I'm a bad person, you know, nothing ever works out for me, just this constant negative thought loop. How is your energy going to be saying those things to yourself constantly versus I am worthy, I am abundant, I attract amazing people into my life, you know, like you can just tell those statements hold different energies, right? And everybody, I think, has heard of the law of attraction, right? And so it's when we have this dominant vibration, it's creating a frequency, right? Everything is energy. We are energy. This table is, everything is energy, right? And so when we get ourselves on a vibration, a frequency that matches that same frequency energy that we want to attract into our lives, it's law of attraction, and it shows up into our reality. So there's the as within, so without is a saying from a book about, you know, kind of like the laws of the universe, basically. And what that's basically saying is that how we feel on the inside, the thoughts, the beliefs, the things that we're telling ourselves over and over and over again creates our external reality. And once I learned that, and it took time. It's not like I said, I did a program that really taught me all of this. And I know a lot of it sounds like woo-woo and spiritual, and I am very spiritual, but there's science to this as well in quantum physics. And you can... I love the program that I did because she teaches both. She teaches the science part of it. She teaches the mind, because these beliefs are in our subconscious mind. This stuff is playing over since we were 7 years old, 6 years old. We pick up these beliefs as a child and we don't even know that they're running in the background, creating the way that we behave and the way we react and the things that trigger us. And, you know, it's all just in our subconscious and we don't really know. And so intentionally manifesting is bringing those beliefs out of the subconscious to the conscious mind, recognizing them and shifting them. And so yeah, she bridges the science part of it, the mind part of it, and then the spiritual part of it. And I love that whether you're spiritual-based, science-based, you can get behind it. And so what I just did is said, okay, I don't know if any of this is true. I'm just going to pretend like it is and see what happens. And you know what? My entire life changed when I did that. And so like I would just say to somebody who doesn't know it, thinks it's crazy, thinks it's just give it a try. Give it a try, fully commit to it. And guess what? If it doesn't work for you, you can go back to your current life.
Yes. Yes, you can go back to feeling miserable,
right.
basically.
Exactly.
Because why would you not want to believe that good things are going to happen for you?
Exactly.
There's nothing bad in, that specific moment of you just feeling good,
Exactly.
I think also is just that, it's very sometimes hard for someone who has never done something like this before to just think that, okay, if I think that I'm going to be a famous actress, meanwhile I'm a teacher, and I've never, I've acted before in my life. And if they're looking at that as a manifesting thing, I think that sometimes people, at least the perception of somebody new coming into manifestation, they think, okay, well, live out your fantasy. What is something that you want in your life, right? And I think perhaps maybe there's that portion, right? And I think perhaps maybe there's that portion where they don't understand that there's kind of a middle period, right? So it's one thing to with the quantum physics and, understanding all of the energy and matching and your subconscious and everything. But do you think that maybe there's a portion to manifesting where it's like, okay, I'm coming from a place of abundance. Mm-hmm. Perhaps in your mind, perhaps maybe you think that you've never thought that perhaps I could be an actress. That didn't even enter your reality. And when you actually truly want that to happen, then you slowly shift and start taking the steps to want to do it. Like maybe you never thought of it, but then tomorrow you sign up for an acting class. And then you sign up for an acting class, even though you never thought of it before, just because you're curious. And then maybe somebody's putting on a production, and then perhaps maybe you decide that it's kind of low budget, whatever it is, but maybe I'll do it. I'll do it for fun. And then maybe, you do it so well, you get discovered and you're, next thing you know, boom, So I think that people leave out that portion of progress.
Yes.
That you actually need to not just visualize that end point of, okay, this is what I want. Mm-hmm. What's my plan to get there?
Yeah.
And so for humans, at least the way that I understand manifestation is that you have to want to make it happen. Not just, it's a fantasy. Because a fantasy could be, I can fly. I don't know if that's you can fly. Maybe. I mean, you could probably, who knows, get on one of those planes at NASA and, float or whatever. So I feel like, what would you say to that? Like, I mean, and I'd love for you to, at least with all of the work you've done with this course, which I hear is, we've talked about is amazing, but I'm sure that there's a lot of other things that we've also approached in terms of manifestation. What would you say that in-between period is to manifesting something that you want?
Yeah. There's this fine balance, I think, between wanting something and also letting it go and trusting that it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's like a big key to manifestation, at least from my experience. And so in that example that you gave, and I think this is something that people often think that they don't trust manifestation, or I think it's crazy because they think, I'm just going to sit on my couch and I'm just going to manifest being a world famous actress and do nothing. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works, right? Mm-mm. Manifestation is about, we are a co-creator with the universe. And so what that means is we have to do our part. There's something called inspired action. So we have to take action towards that manifestation. And the universe meets us halfway and will deliver these synchronicities that you're speaking of. Mm-hmm. I sign up for an acting class. Okay, that's the inspired action because you decided that, acting might sound good or interesting. I'm just going to go do it. And then the universe brings this person into your world and says, I just met this awesome person who connected me with so-and-so. And I'm sure everyone, if they think back, you can think of synchronicities that have happened in your life of this happened or wouldn't have happened had I not done this, this, and this, mm-hmm. and there's a path. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's all about. And so I think when you're the person sitting in your living room wanting to be a famous actress, and famous actress is way over here, there's a lot that has to happen mm-hmm. in between there.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to say it can't happen overnight. Maybe mm-hmm. you're like a one-hit wonder mm-hmm. kind of person. You get discovered.
Right.
That's happened too.
Yes, it has.
But I think there's something called the ladder of believability, mm-hmm. and it's what I work with, basically. And it's like, okay, I want to be this famous actress. right now, my beliefs, me sitting on my couch eating potato chips, are not consistent with someone who's a world famous actress, right? And so what is that next step? Do I believe that I can be an actress at my local theater, you know? Yes. And then I work towards that. And so then you go to the next step of the ladder and you keep working your way up. And it's not like you're just trying to jump from couch potato, world famous actress. There's the ladder of believability, and that's getting your beliefs within your subconscious mind behind what you're trying to achieve.
Right. Yeah. That's it. Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think it's a really great way of breaking it down, because the idea of that ladder of believability. Yes. And it is. It's like, I can see someone who's determined and wants to do it. It can happen. And I love how you break it down, because there are steps in between.
Yeah.
So if you are, I would say there's a difference between what you're manifesting and what a fantasy is.
Yes.
A fantasy is like, I could go this way, and that could be that, or whatever, but hey, let's not put any, it's just something I'm thinking about, but something that you're manifesting is completely different. And if you truly, truly, truly want that thing, then there has to be a plan, and it's in some ways, okay, so I worked with someone where basically, the way that they plan things is they think of the final product and then they work backwards to where they are. Is that something that is in line with manifestation?
I think in some ways, yes. Like, I love to build the vision. Like, this is my overarching vision of what I'm working towards in my life. But I don't try to get so specific with it where it has to be, I need this, 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 and this, and this to happen. Because what I've noticed is that I could be working towards an experience that I want to experience in my life, and the universe delivers so much better than that.
Absolutely.
It always, like, one of the affirmations, it's always this or something better. And I truly believe that. And so it's almost like I have this overarching vision of like what I want to create, but it goes back to that just one step at a time. And once it actually manifests, it's always better. And so yes and no. Like, there needs to be a vision. That's the first step in manifesting, is getting clear on what you want, right? You have to know. It's like a GPS, right? Like, you have to put the destination in the GPS to get where you're going. So it's the path along the way. You can get to a destination a million different ways, right? Oh. And so it's like being open to, the journey. That's really it's all about, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's definitely interesting. It is the journey. I think there's portions of manifestation that can be, certainly there's the end point, right? I feel like I'd love to know where you are in terms of your life when it comes to how it's been manifested. And then also the way that you think about things, because sometimes you might manifest something and then a bunch of bad stuff happens, and then you're like, I didn't manifest this, But at the same time, so for me specifically as an example, is that, building a business, when you've, been building a business, you think that this is the perfect person. And, if I partner with this person, or if this person works with me, then this is the only way that I can achieve that goal. But then it doesn't work out. And, and it's like, okay, well, I'm manifesting this thing and all these bad things are happening. What do you think about bad things happening when it comes to manifestation? Is that something that you just accept?
Yeah.
Is that something that you're just okay with it? And how would you ask someone or explain that to somebody?
So, not a lot of people like this, but I don't think there's good or bad. There just is, right? We put a label on it, and we are the ones who say whether it's good or whether it's bad. But someone else could have a different perception of that, right? So, like, everything just is. And so there's another saying, polarity creates clarity, is one of my mentor's favorite sayings. Polarity meaning that you might experience something that you're not happy with, right? Or that you weren't you thought you were going to be excited about working with that person, and it turned out being they stole from you, they screwed you over, they took your clients or whatever, and it ended up being a quite awful experience, right? What did you learn from that, right? There's always a lesson in those experiences. I think every single bad experience that we've had, there is a lesson in there for us to learn. And so I think that through those experiences, we get more clear on what we don't want and what we do want. And it's just getting us closer and closer to what is truly going to make us happy. And so it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, right? Like, obviously, nobody wants crappy stuff to happen to us.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think if we can just be, I always try to go back to gratitude as much as possible. And it's like, okay, I know this really crappy thing happened to me and it made me very sad and I'm very angry and I'm very pissed off at this person. But let me just be thankful that it happened and that I learned this, and this from it. And I'm never going to let that happen again, right? And so... it sucks sometimes to deal with. And that's the hard part of life, is kind of moving through those experiences. But I always try to at least come back to what is the lesson here.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
And I always love having these conversations with you. Now, here's something. And, I think that this is sometimes can be kind of a controversial topic, but we're not going to get anywhere near that. But, there's the idea of, if you are manifesting something and you do have control of your reality, essentially that means that in your mind, you're choosing to do something a certain way. There are certain cultures, there's certain faiths that assign and ascribe to the idea that this is the way it's supposed to happen. Your life is charted. So, the idea of free will, free will versus manifestation, right? Like, what are your thoughts on that? And not in any controversial way. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get back to the idea, because the entire premise of manifestation is that we do have a choice in our reality. The outcome, whatever the universe, God, the world, what love, however it happens, I specifically when it comes to manifestation, it's everything that is the journey along the way. Sometimes even the bad things need to happen that you thought were so horrendous, but if that didn't happen, you wouldn't have this amazing thing, And so I would love for you to explain that in terms of manifestation and your choices. Are they different timelines? Like, for example, I was telling, I was on a road trip and I was explaining the timeline process, what different timelines are, in terms of choice and manifesting. It's like I was eating one of those popcorn, what is it, the black bag, cheese popcorn. What is that one? White cheddar popcorn.
Oh, yeah.
And I was holding it and I was just like, if I don't know, grab the popcorn accidentally from the bag behind us because we're on a road trip and it's open and I dropped a bunch of it on the side versus it being closed and me pulling it and none of the popcorn spilled out. Maybe when we got to the gas station, I would have to clean that out and spend more time at the gas station outside where maybe I might have met someone or I might have, walked into the store because my hands were cheesy and from collecting all the popcorn, and something might have happened. So is that a timeline? Is that something, a part of the manifestation journey where even our actions are kind of in synchronicity with an extended outcome?
Yeah. When I was first learning about this, one of my mentors explained this. It was kind of crazy to think about. Like, as a child, when you were not even aware of any of this, right? But like when your mom came to you and asked, do you want apple juice or do you want orange juice? And you're like, I want apple juice. Well, you put yourself on the timeline as the type of person who chooses apple juice. And so it's all of these choices that we are making are putting us on different timelines in this reality that we're living. And so, you can think about it as like bigger decisions, right? I just made one of the biggest decisions of my life by quitting my job, right? And so that now put me on a completely different timeline of where I am no longer a corporate executive. I am an entrepreneur.
Right.
And that is going to look so different, right? And so going back to, I love that you asked the question about free will because I literally just asked this to one of my spiritual teachers because I had this same question, right? Of not even like religion, right? But just like, I understand it as, as a spiritual person that we incarnate here, right, to learn lessons in life, right? And
experience.
So experience this life to learn lessons. And we all choose those lessons when we come here, right, in this lifetime. And I was struggling with like, okay, but if I already know that like God, universe, whomever sent me here, or I chose to come here and learn these lessons, then how is there free will if this is already like predefined for me? And the way that she described it for me was that we basically have what she described as an essence. So like we come here and we want to learn the essence of forgiveness, right? And so we, as, being these 3D humans on this like giant rock, get to choose how we're going to like experience this lifetime, but we're going to end up learning forgiveness. And so we have the free will to choose how we're going to learn that essence or that lesson. But how we learn it is our own free will to choose. Yeah.
No, I definitely. And to add to your point, I think, this is something that I have been very wary of. It's not something that, it's something that I just jump on the bandwagon, but the thing is that it's also a thought, right? Sometimes it's like, you do need to challenge your own thoughts to see if you're on the right path. There are so many different ideas of how one could live their life. And, an idea, a thought that was kind of, that I derived and, kind of became kind of clear to me is that, the idea of who you are in your lifetime, it could be your soul, right? And your soul that, me and you, Sue Ellen, we're sitting here, we have our soul right now, but we were the same soul when we were kids, and it was just the same essence of that human. But, were you the same soul in utero, and, you could have been there, but who's to say, that you may have also been somewhere before that, like, I don't know. It's a thought. But then there's also, were you somewhere after, we won't be around forever, maybe. So there's a lot of kind of like interesting kind of ideas that I can understand in terms of you experiencing life. We just being here, even the good, the bad, perhaps whatever that soul is experiencing, even perhaps maybe I might have had some feelings when I was in my mommy's belly, like there could have been some, or maybe, who knows, I mean, it's that gets on into different zones, definitely like where faith comes in. But, at the end of the day, whatever it is, it's the experience that we're experiencing. We're here to be, experience love, compassion, and we're also here to learn, and whatever choices we're making, I would say, hopefully should center around those, at least in the sense that when you're talking about manifestation, it should not come from a place of, I have a void and this, right, I'm manifesting this to happen, versus coming from, abundance where you're like, oh my God, it's going to happen, then you're kind of then messing with it, I mean, what do you think about that? Is like definitely not be in a negative space to, manifest something, but then also, is it wrong to be too positive that something's going to happen?
I mean, I think there's like toxic positivity because you are just trying to, I think when we're in a toxic positivity situation is we are suppressing, I don't want to say negative, but maybe some feelings beneath the surface that we're avoiding. And it's like, I'm just, think positive thoughts. Everything's great. Everything, that meme with the dog and like the fires around him or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
It's fine. Everything's fine, but beneath the surface in your mind, you're freaking out, But I loved what you said about just like recognizing your thoughts. And I think that is like the first step is just self-awareness. I don't think that many of us, me included, are walking around as self-aware people. It took me years to like notice this, like, holy cow, I'm not even paying attention to how I think. We just go through life like robots, you know? It's like you get up, you go to work, you make your lunch, you go to the gym, and it's just this cycle over and over and over again. And we're not actually like taking a second to think about like, how do I feel about this? Is this making me happy?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So yeah, I think like just having some self-awareness is like the first step in this, you know? And like, yes, you want to be thinking positive thoughts, of course. I mean, it just makes you feel better, right? Nobody wants to be negative, but like, girl, I sit around and cry too. You know, like I let myself
you gotta feel all the feelings.
I feel it all.
Yeah,
like
I think it's definitely
it's part of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think some people also, in terms of manifestation and just like, you know, it is becoming more of a popularized topic, at least from what I've seen. You know, more people are talking about it. And I think some people think it's selfish or greedy to want, you know, $1 million business or whatever you're trying to manifest, you know? And I don't think so at all. Like, I do think that people come from a greedy place and you can come from it like from a negative, selfish type of place. But like, I always think, and this is what I love about who I support in my business, is because I think the more heart-centered business owners, people in the world, people who care about other people, if they can become living their dream life, happier, have more money, more abundance, all of that is going to be used to spread more good in the world, right? And so, yes, if somebody is like manifesting something because they're like greedy, selfish people and they want to like control others, like obviously that's coming from a negative place. But I don't think that wanting more in life and wanting to be happy is a negative thing at all. Like, I want to show people what's possible. And by doing that, it's me living my best life as well.
Right.
And people seeing me and saying like, I want to do what you're doing, you know?
Absolutely. That's a great example, actually. And I think that for anyone watching out there, you know, perhaps maybe they don't believe that perhaps maybe things could get better.
Yeah.
You know, you hear about kids in middle school. You know, middle school is hard. And, you know, sometimes the worst can happen. They're dealing with a lot of stress. I remember being in middle school. That was, you just don't know. And you think that is your reality and it's always going to be like that. You know, high school, 20s, whatever. You know, sometimes people believe that this is it. And I don't have any more life to live. This is the moment, and nothing like these two kids saying things about me or this person at work saying this about me is the end all to it, you know? And I would say that in terms of the life I've lived and also like with you and, you know, the kind of conversations that we have, you feel as though experience is beautiful, right? Because had I not experienced all of those really crazy things that might have happened in my life, I don't think that I would be here, right? It's a journey. You have to get to that point of realizing that, oh, things can change. There are layers that are getting peeled back every year if you're willing to want to do that kind of work. So to those individuals that are out there that might be stuck, maybe it's like a very theoretical word, self-awareness. What am I being aware about? You know, what would you say to them? And, you know, what words of advice can you give them to be able to realize that, hey, things get better? And I would say I'm a testament to it. I'm not saying things are perfect,
right?
But, you know, being self-aware, just even Googling that word is a step.
Right.
So what would you say to somebody who perhaps is, you know, just by listening to this is ready to kind of start discovering or embark? What would you say to them?
I would say it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. Like you and I have been working at this for years, right?
Yeah.
Intentional. And it literally just starts with paying attention. What am I thinking? When you catch a thought, think, okay, wait, I just said something negative about myself in my head. Why did I say that? And just recognizing what are the common things that I keep telling myself? Do I keep looking in the mirror and telling myself, ew, look at her forehead, look at my forehead, look at, or whatever, right? how are you speaking to yourself on the regular and catching it? Because I feel like I used to do this. I felt awful about myself. I did not feel pretty. I did not feel worthy. And I was catching myself in the mirror like, ew,
Yeah.
And I finally was like, why? Wait, no, we're changing that. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think self-awareness is really at first just paying attention. What am I saying to myself most often? What beliefs am I recognizing that I believe, and start thinking, why do I believe that? Do I actually believe that? Is it something that my parents told me I should believe? Is it something that I learned in school and they told me I should believe this, that I learned it in church? Do I actually subscribe to this belief, or is it just something I picked up along the way? Because we don't challenge enough. We go through this school system, we go through just life, being farmed out, being told what to learn and what to believe, right? And none of us question it, right? And so I think it just starts with, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking that? Do I want to continue thinking that? What are these beliefs? Why do I have them? And do I want to continue believing them? Because if not, change it.
Exactly.
You can believe whatever you want to believe.
Question yourself. Question yourself. Because if you can't control society and you can't question the lobbyists,
right?
You can't question yourself.
Yes.
So perhaps maybe that's a place to start.
Yes. Being very inquisitive. That's what I learned to be. And look, I'm not perfect at this either. I definitely get into these like grooves where my head's down and I'm not paying attention, and you recognize it and you pull yourself back, right? And so it's not perfect, and I think that would just be like what I want to say is like, it is not going to be a perfect process. Don't expect, I deal with perfectionism all the time, and it's like giving myself grace to fall off track and then you get back. Like I think in self-development, it's not about being perfect. It's how quickly you can get back on track. We're going to screw up. Yeah. You're going to fall off track. You're going to fall off your habits. It's how quickly can you pull yourself back. And so I think that's like the most important.
Yeah. And the resilience to get back up and try again.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, as though you were talking about emotions, I don't know if you've read the Tao or into like that whole Buddhist philosophy where you are either or, within those two, schools of thought, it's that whole, a person that is not a person that is questioning freedom, right? So say, you don't have freedom, they recognize that lack of freedom because they've been in captivity, right? So with someone who is miserable in their head and having these all of these negative emotions, that self-awareness of recognizing that that's a negative emotion means that they understand what a positive emotion is.
Yes.
It's beautiful to be able to experience all of those things, because that you've had happiness and that you can be that way. So it's all the way that you think. I want to get back to, with now just having discussed all of this manifestation and where you are, in your, you've transitioned where you're helping these small business owners, specifically helping them and essentially us, in the wellness space, wellness in relation to yoga and Pilates and energy work and, all of these different meditation, whatever spaces, there's so many different spaces. How did you get to this place here? Because you manifested it.
So I recognized that I wanted my life to change, right? After coming out of that breakup and, saying, okay, what I did is I laid out my areas of my life. I said, all right, relationship, my family, my career, fun, for spirituality, I laid them out and I ranked them. And I said, okay, 1 to 10, how satisfied, how happy am I? 10 being I love this part of my life. 1 being I hate it, miserable. And obviously one of the lowest ranking was my career. And I said, I'm changing this, right? And so through manifestation, I just started thinking, okay, who do I want to serve? I always came from a place of service, right? Who do I want to work with? Who do I want to serve? And I'm very passionate about health and wellness. And so I just started step 1. I'm an accountant. I can do their books, right? And it was step 1, right? Let me just start manifesting bookkeeping clients, And I had a pretty big ego death, I would say, between this, because you go from managing $1 billion company into like doing bookkeeping, and which is a lower level service in the accounting world, right? You know, to bookkeeping, right? There was like a big ego thing there, like what am I doing? Who, like how, you know, it felt like I've made myself to this like quote unquote ivory tower, right? And now I'm like back at square one. But I had to let all of that go. And I just said, I want to help people. And that was one of the biggest things in my corporate job is like, I never felt that the work I was doing made an impact in anyone's life. I felt like it was just like, you know, for the shareholders, right? And I'm not saying that's bad or good. There's a place in that for everybody, right? You know, I have employees who love working there, right? But for me, I wanted my work to mean more. And so for me, exactly what you're saying is like in the health and wellness space, I knew that if I can help these health and wellness business owners make more money, that is therefore helping their life, helping their employees' life, and then it's extending more wellness into the communities, right? And so that was my vision. So I just started posting on Instagram. Had no idea like who, anything. I just started posting on Instagram, right? Literally no clue what I was doing, right? Like building a business. Square one. Completely
You're putting yourself
lost.
out there, though.
Yes.
Because that's the first step. Even if you don't, you feel like awkward, ridiculous, whatever, you know?
Yes.
You got to lean into it. And then,
yes.
But you started somewhere.
I did. And pushing post on that first post was the most.
It's cringy. I've done that. I'm like, no.
So awkward.
Hide.
Yes. Well, you know, that was a big fear of mine, is fear of being seen. You know, doing something like this right now and having this conversation is just like a big jump for me. And just like, it's so good for me to do something like this because I'm continuing to show myself that there is no reason to be fearful of being seen and sharing who we are, you know.
And also not caring about what other people think.
Exactly.
Because that is the biggest hurdle, I think, is that you stay stuck and manifesting, working a job that you're stuck in, you know, being something for other people, people pleasing, all of this.
Yes.
It makes you miserable.
Yes, it
and
really
you
does.
just have to stop caring, because the second that you stop caring is when you realize, what do I want?
Yes.
I care about me and I don't care about you. So now I'm just going to do whatever I want. So, but I think that's, you know, it's a start. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So I just started posting on Instagram, right? And just like general like bookkeeping stuff. But behind the scenes, I was still doing my like energy shifting, right? And so every day I love to do walking visualizations. And so there's some great ones on YouTube, right? There's like one of my favorites. I can't remember her name, but there's some good,
check that out.
There's some good ones. And I would just go, I love being in nature. And you know, in Chicago, sometimes it's hard to get out in nature. Even when it was freezing, I would go out there just to get the fresh air on my face, to be near the trees. I live near the river. I would just walk the river, and it was like a 25-minute visualization, just visualizing that dream life. And I would just visualize the type of client I wanted to work with and who I wanted to call into my life. You know, I really wanted to work with health and wellness business owners, spiritual business owners, people who thought like me, who were like me, you know, who thought big, who were, you know, cared about their own well-being and their personal growth, you know. And so it didn't happen overnight, right? Like, so I would do this every day, and I would visualize, and I would do scripting, which is like in my journal, and I would just write a day in my life as if it's already happened, you know, like I woke up today, I'm supporting such and such business owner, and I got into the feelings of what it would feel like to be a business owner supporting these type of businesses. And it took 5 months, but I kept the faith. Like, I knew that if I kept at this, because I remember I told myself, I'm proving to myself that this works, right? And I, you know, so I practiced yoga, and my yoga studio that I was a member of at the time, she approached me one day, and she was like, oh, I saw that you're doing like bookkeeping or whatever. And she's like, my mom does my books. And so I had thought that she was going to be interested in working together. And I was like, okay, well, let's get together. And that didn't actually pan out. But I got a random email, and she said, hey, this yoga studio owner, recommended that I reach out to you because I'm opening a spiritual wellness center here in Chicago, and I'm looking for someone to do my books. She just came out of nowhere. Like, I had no ties to this woman. She didn't even see me online. It was because these synchronicities, someone knew, and so connected me with her. And like, I have goosebumps just talking about it, because in that moment, I knew that this works. Like, I knew it worked because
I just got goosebumps thinking about it.
Exactly. She was a spiritual business owner. She's actually my spiritual mentor. I've learned so much from her. And like, getting her as a client has turned out to be so much more than a client. Right. She was my first client, which has proven to me that it's possible, because if there's one, there's more. I have gained so much just connection to myself through going to her wellness center, because it is a spiritual wellness center. I've become like a Reiki practitioner there. You know, I've gone to like meditations. I've just found myself there, and it's just helped me so much personally. Never would I have known that when I just first signed her as a client. And I just think it's so beautiful that you don't even know where these situations are going to lead you to, right? Absolutely. And that's going back to this or something better. It was so much better than I was visualizing walking down the river, you know?
Oh my gosh. And I love that. Yeah. And that's just one thing about like at least what you're doing with small business owners specifically. The yoga studios or the Pilates studios or any meditation space lessons that I go to or have been to are typically small business. I don't want to go to a big box, you know, yoga studio, learn meditation, standardized meditation for the United States of America. No, I don't want to go there. Okay. So, but it's interesting. And just, you know, as we're wrapping up, just one last question I wanted to ask you, because we were kind of, you know, talking about this before we even started, you know, specifically because you're here on social media and, you know, just the fact that you have been in these like kind of wellness and healing spaces, but at the same time, you know, you were transitioning out of this very corporate job. Also then independently kind of, you know, testing the market to see what your business itself, you know, whether it's something that could scale or not, you know. But, and those are a lot of things to do at one time.
Yes.
I think, and what we were saying is that a lot of people think that they're not supposed to do a lot of things at one time. It's like, oh, you should be laser focused on that, you know? So you're going to basically think about numbers all day, you know? I mean, I'm sure you love numbers, but at the end of the day, you don't want to be doing that all day.
Yeah.
What would you say, and this kind of is coming full circle, like, because we started out talking about balance, how do you instill like balance in your life? Specifically now, when we were talking about creativity, how it's okay to put yourself out. Because I feel like being on social media is kind of, it is creative, you know? Yes, it's, you know, whatever. It doesn't seem like, but it is, you know? I mean, even if you're talking about, you know, financials, still, it's pretty creative, you know? So tell me about that. Tell me about the balance and how it's okay to do lots of things at one time.
Yeah. So I will say, when I first started out, there was no balance. I was working nonstop, right? Like,
and that is balance, because you realized that was important, maybe. You
exactly.
know?
Yeah. And, you know, going back to things just, are you just going to manifest? No, you have to do work, right? And so it's just like, to me, it's like choose your hard, right? It's hard to stay in a job that you hate. And it's also hard to work your butt off trying to build a business to get out of said job, right? And it's like choose your hard, right? And so there was a period in my life where there was no balance, honestly. And I'm finally getting out of that quite a bit. So I had to prioritize my time, I think was like one of the biggest things for me in my journey is like, okay, this is my time to get client work done. And at the beginning, it's easier because I had no clients, right? So I was really just focused on marketing, right? And just getting processes in place and structure in my business. But now, you know, I just hired my second team member to help me behind the scenes, because I realized if I do want to continue to grow and scale, you have to have a team. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, is especially as entrepreneurs, they don't want to let go of things because it's, I want everything done my way, you know.
And then you're going to just do your pace. That's your pace. That's what it's going to be.
Exactly. And I think the investment, obviously, I want to pay my team fairly, because like I think they deserve that, right? And I think some business owners are scared to like let go of that money. And we could do a whole episode on like money mindset stuff because it's something else I'm very passionate about. It's like we have so much money, I don't want to say trauma, but just beliefs in the back of our, mind.
You're so right. Yes, actually, that's a very good one.
Yeah. That I think letting go of control was like a huge lesson for me this last time I went to Bali. Someone, a very spiritual man there, told me that I need to learn to let go of control. And he was very right. So like I've learned to let go of some things and get some help, and that's helped me bring balance back into my life to where I don't wake up. I used to like wake up first thing and just go to my computer, and like get to work. But no, I have my mornings now. And like I take care of me in the mornings first. I'm still taking care of my health, my wellness, my spiritual practices, because it is important to me. And it's gotten me here. And I know if I continue to invest in myself like that, it's going to continue to get me to that next step in the ladder, right? So I'm working towards the next step.
Ladder of believability.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. And it's actually, I love how this has come full circle. I love listening to your journey. I mean, and it's ongoing, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just, but also I at least from what I'm seeing, my vantage point is that you have come to terms with that process, right? The manifestation, but then also balancing being a business owner, experiencing what you've experienced, childhood, but then also, as you explored the corporate spaces. This has been really great. I really enjoyed this, and hopefully we have viewers that can take a lesson from this. And if it's helped them or helped one person, I think that is the most important thing, because there is more, and you can be happy and do the things that you love. So where can we find you? Where can we reach you? If someone wants to reach out, if you're a small business owner in the wellness space,
yeah,
she's your girl.
Yeah. Yeah. You can catch me on Instagram. Healthy Balance Bookkeeping is my business name, healthybalancebookkeeping.com. But I usually hang out on Instagram. So that's the best place to find me.
Great. DM. All right. Amazing. Well, loved having you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's so fun. Thanks for having me.